Hello, everybody. How are you today? I am Jason Barr, joined by KGUN9's Pat Parris, and this is The Huddle, our weekly streaming sports talk show brought to you every week at Tuesday, normally at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, or at least Arizona time, but 1 o'clock today for another story we're working on here today. So thank you, everybody, for joining us at this time, and for those of you watching it on recorded. Pat, how are you today?
I'm pretty good, Jason. We got a lot going on this week.
A lot going on this month and for the next few months. It's kind of the busy time in Tucson. We like that, though. Of course, we got the basketball, and we got the rodeo, and we got the Cologuard Classic, and we got the Live Classic coming in, and Desert Diamond the showcase for the soccer. Lots of stuff I'm forgetting, but that's good. It's good to have stuff. The minor league hockey with the Roadrunners. It's good to have more stuff than not stuff. But we're going to start, of course, with the fourth-ranked Arizona basketball team. And Pat, I tell you what, you don't want to panic a little bit after a loss or two, but they did look a little not as crisp as they did earlier this season. Tommy Lloyd makes two moves in once, switches one part of the starting lineup, and shortens the bench. And here we are sitting here 3 weeks later on a 6-game winning streak.
Every team is going to go through some adversity, whether it be, hopefully, as I knock on wood, it's not, injuries. And the Wildcats have been relatively healthy so far. Adversity doesn't always come in the form of injuries, though, or losing a player. Sometimes it just comes in one of those stretches where you're not playing well, and the adversity comes in how you handle that, how you move forward from that, and how you get better. And I think there were a lot of us a few weeks ago that were thinking, okay, this team isn't good enough defensively. Suddenly the offense is struggling. Maybe this team isn't a 2-seed or a 1-seed, or maybe even a 3-seed. Maybe it's a 4-seed. Maybe it's not a team that can win the Pac-12 title. That didn't last long, Jason. As you mentioned, he makes those moves, and they were key moves with Pelle Larsson coming off the bench and shortening the bench a little bit. But more importantly, they had a little time to work. Remember, they took their lumps against Washington State, and then all of a sudden they came out with a different defensive intensity. And I think that's what they did, is they worked on defense. It has become a better stat in the KenPom. They're moving up in that stat. They are definitely one of the better defensive teams in the Pac-12. Maybe they're going to end up being the best defensive team in the Pac-12. And that means that now they have a chance to win the Pac-12 regular season and possibly the tournament as well.
Well, Pat, not just a different defensive intensity, but also they're defending the three-point shot a little bit better. We don't see, and I'm not just talking about the percentage. I'm talking about guys just left wide open for three-point shots.
Yeah, the difference is, in last year's Arizona defense, we watched guys rotate off all the time, right? And they would change off as teams are cutting and screening. They would change. Now we still see some of that changing in I'll take him, you take him. But instead of the last year where they would try to trap guys in the corner, then off of those picks, now they're not doing that. You don't see as much two-man trapping out high or two-man trapping in the corner. They're just not doing that, Jason. They're basically saying, okay, we'll switch because we have to, but we're going to stick to that man, and that help defense only help if you absolutely have to. Otherwise, we're really just counting on each guy to do their job, and so far they are.
So this week we've got the team at the Bay Area teams, and really, Pat, it looks like this is a collision course to the last week of the regular season, where Arizona is going to go to USC and finish up the year at Pauley Pavilion, and that's going to be for the Pac-12 regular season title. Right now, U of A half game back of UCLA for first, a half a game ahead of USC, which is in third place. And really, that's the collision course that's happening right now in the Pac-12 regular season. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I definitely do. And by the way, in case people wonder how they're half game back and a half game, UCLA and USC haven't had that week yet where they only play each other. And while the other teams, including U of A, will have two games.
Let me stop you. They have one of the two.
Right. They have one more of those left.
Right, one more of those. Yep.
Right. They have one more of those left, and that comes up before that week where Arizona goes to USC, then UCLA. But I do see that, Jason. There's still a little bit of basketball to play before that. You don't want to stub your toe somewhere. Cal, maybe not so much a team that you fear a lot, but Stanford's never an easy game. You just got to take care of business. But I agree. It looks like it's setting up that if they can do what they're supposed to do down the stretch, that UCLA game looms large.
All right. So Tommy Lloyd said something interesting in a post-game news conference the other day, Pat. He said, Azuolas Tubelis is a first-team All-American. He's not getting the credit he deserves. And we're asking the local media to help out a little bit here. This is where the local media can help out. So I said, okay, I'll take him up on it. I sent a tweet with what he said, and I CC'd it to a bunch of the, national college basketball reporters, if you will, for the big networks. You know who they are. And it started with Seth Davis quoting it, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I don't think there's a tweet that I've sent that has gotten that much reaction on both sides. Some people were mad at me, Pat, as that's a wasted tweet. Those people don't care. And then they tweeted three other people, which helped my cause. I like that tweet. Thank you. That helped my cause. And so now I don't know how much that's going to help, but obviously he touched a nerve a little bit for my tweet to get that type of reaction. No.
Well, and I think you're onto something there. And I find it hard to believe that a Seth Davis didn't already know who Azuolas Tubelis is, but
his quote tweet said he's got a point there.
Yes. The point is well taken, that maybe he's not being talked about as much as he should be for a guy who's as dominant as he's been and as impressive as he's been. But that 40-point game took it to a whole nother level, Jason. I think with or without Tommy Lloyd's comments, everybody noticed that 40-point game. It was on SportsCenter. That game was on ESPN that night too. Remember, I know that people on the East Coast don't always see that, but they see SportsCenter. Those writers all know, the broadcasters all know. They see a 40-point game. It really, jumps out at them. It was funny, that game, that Oregon game, I happened to have the night off because, as you know, I have a partial season ticket plan. I like to go when I can. If that means taking a day off from work, so be it. I'll take a day off from work. And my daughter ended up going with me, and she hadn't been to a game yet this year. And as they're introducing players, I said, you know what? Pay attention to Azuolas Tubelis. I'm telling you, I think he's one of the top players, if not the top player right now in college basketball today, right now. And then he goes off for 40. I look like a genius. And I'm like, no, I'm not a genius. I think I'm just one of those people that has been able to see him every single game. And I've truly appreciated how much he's elevated his game, even from last year, when we all knew he was a very good player last year. But I think he's really taken to heart, his responsibilities, this being his team in a lot of ways, Jason. And I think that he stood up to the challenge.
Yeah. Before we get to the Super Bowl, we'll mention Aaron's comment, and then I want to get back to something you said, and I want to talk a little Arizona women's basketball too. Actually, I don't see an automatic bid from anyone other than Arizona or UCLA. I know USC beat UCLA. I just think those are the two best teams above. I don't see a team upsetting both. I don't see UCLA and Arizona not being the 1-2 seed and then a team upsetting both teams to get the automatic bid. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean somebody else is going to get another bid. Pat, before you comment on that, you mentioned your daughter. I'm walking out of Trader Joe's and I do this double take.
Oh, did you see my daughter?
I saw her name.
Oh, yeah.
On the door.
She's a chiropractor at a place called The Joint, and it's right next to Trader Joe's there at Grant and Swan. So
I'm like, I know who
Miranda is. Go get adjusted, Jason. She's terrific.
I'm sure she is.
I do say so myself.
All right. So before we get to the Super Bowl, what a weekend for Arizona women's basketball. Unless, Pat, you want to comment on what Aaron asked.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I don't see any, dark. I don't see an Oregon State coming out of nowhere and making a deep tournament run then or something like that.
It happens. I don't see it this year.
No,
Oregon's been hot and cold. I ask me again in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Ask me. Okay, what a weekend for Arizona women's basketball, right?
It was crazy, right? Everybody was talking about that win on Saturday. All everybody kept talking about is how that amazing comeback win that they had Friday night, and then they top it by the double overtime win on Sunday.
This team finds a way sometimes. The other close game that they lost was a really tough call on Esbury Martinez. They find a way in these close games.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I've been real critical of their offense, of what Lauren Fields brings offensively. But late in the game, she decides to score.
Yeah.
It's like, where has this been the rest of the game?
Well, and you and I,
and
we're looking at Kate Reese right there, and you and I have had
you see her shoulder,
conversations.
by the way, in that. That's why I picked that picture out.
Yeah, we've seen her have some times where it's harder for her to score the basketball, or she's just not maybe in the flow. And I get it. Adia Barnes is all about defense first, and that's why you see him, take off after a shot goes up on their end. They'll run back on the defensive end. But that's the Kate Reese that we expected we would see more of by the
33
time.
points, a career high, with Esmeri Martinez fouled out of the game.
Yeah, and those are the kind. I'm not saying she's going to score 33 every game, but we thought she would become this dominant player in the Pac-12 because we saw what she did 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and she was, and she's had brief moments like this, and I don't. It's no point in speculating. The injuries are, certainly slowed her down, and you want to see the confidence come back, and maybe this is what she needed. Maybe she's turned this corner of getting past these injuries and getting that confidence back on the offensive end of things, because you can play great defense, Jason, and transition right into playing great offense, and they've just really struggled up until this point doing that. Maybe this is what they needed, and they're gonna stay hot now through February into March.
So we talked about what the men are playing for. What the women are really playing for more than anything is to be in the top 16, because
Right.
that's when you get to host a couple of games. That's much easier. I know they lost at home last year, but that's much easier than having to go on the road. That's the bubble that they're on, right? This team's going to make the NCAA tournament. This team's likely not going to win the Pac-12, although Stanford's gotten tripped up. They do host Stanford on Thursday, but likely what they're really playing for, I think, is you want to be home for those two games.
That's right.
Just what it does for the program and the excitement and everything else. So I do think this year's seniors are better than the senior transfers from last year. I think they've got better attitudes and the whole thing, and I think that's helped a little bit. So an overtime win and a double overtime win, first road sweep of the LA schools in more than 20 years. Way to go. That's a good weekend for
Absolutely. It was very, very impressive. And you're right, Jason. It's a different animal, women's road to the Final Four versus the men's road to the Final Four. The men, you're those first two games, you're going to be going at the already designated sites, and exactly where you're going to be headed. As a 1 or a 2 seed, you got a pretty good idea where you're going to be going for Arizona men. On the women's side, what an advantage to be at home. We saw that last year. We know they weren't as good a team as we've seen in the last few years, and they did trip up at home in the second round game. But that advantage is huge for a team like Arizona. Their home crowd, it's a major boost. And as you said, that really grows the sport, grows the fan base. It's just a win-win. Going on the road, that's a whole different story, and you really want to see them at home.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the Super Bowl now. We mentioned all the stuff going on. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl too.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah, some big game. All right, so let's bring up the odds here of the Super Bowl. The Eagles and the Chiefs. The Eagles are a 1.5 favorite. The line has not moved much this week as we bring up that, plus the over-under. Let's start with the point spread. Pat, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going with the Eagles defense and their ability to get to the quarterback and a not 100% Mahomes. I'm going to take the Eagles to win the game. And, I'm not going to thread the needle here. It's a 1.5. I'm going to go with the Eagles and give the 1.5.
I've been on the Chiefs since they won the AFC Championship game. As far as when I saw the matchup, I know what you're saying. I know exactly why the Eagles are a 1.5 favorite. I've gotten past that whole, well, it's East Coast, they're going to get a little bit more publicity. It's not that. The Eagles are deserving. They're a team. They're a favorite, a slight favorite for a reason. I don't see it that way. I really do see the Chiefs winning this game. You and I've talked, Jason. We're not always right about these Super Bowl predictions. We're not. It's just you see a team, you latch onto that team. I'm not a huge Chiefs fan, but I think the Chiefs are the better team. I think they have defensively have a good enough team to stop the Eagles. And I think their offense might just be good enough, especially with a couple of weeks of rest now for Patrick Mahomes.
I'd love to be able to say, no way, Pat, you're wrong. Eagles are going to win. And in a week, I told you so. But to be honest with you, it's not a high conviction bet.
Yeah.
And even less is the over under. Good luck with that.
That's the whole thing.
I was thinking about that and trying to come up with scenarios and this and that. That's a tough one with that over under. Sometimes those games can really just stay low scoring. And then sometimes a team scores, another team matches, and another team scores, and it starts to become a little bit more high scoring than you would think. You know,
right.
I'd almost say it's not going to be around 50. It's going to be maybe under 40 or over 60, you know, something like that. So I don't have high conviction on that, but I'm glad we're going different here. I do think the Eagles, I just don't overthink it. I've just seen too many strong defenses, especially in the NFC over the years, whether it was the Rams a couple of years ago or those NFC East teams back in the day. I'm going with Eagles in the defense, which leads me to the next one, which was the odds to win the Super Bowl MVP. And because I'm going to go with the Eagles and the defense, I'm going to be consistent. Listen, if you have $100 to throw around that you don't mind losing, I'd go with Hassan Reddick here. What does Bruce Arians say? No biscuit, no risk it, no biscuit, right? So, you know, I think the reason why Mahomes isn't the favorite is because of his ankle. You know, Hurts is basically a 1-to-1. And then you've got, you know, Kelsey and A.J. Brown. Those are good ones. Devontae Smith. But I'd go with Hassan Reddick. You know, he got to the quarter, the way he got to the quarterback against the 49ers and Purdy, it felt like any quarterback was going to get hurt being behind there. That's who I would go, you know, two sacks and another big play gets you the MVP of the Super Bowl if an offensive player does not dominate, in my view.
Yeah, you could be right. I mean, this is another one of those. It's kind of, you know, you might as well take a little bit of a gamble, right? Going with Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes isn't that much of a risky gamble. Travis Kelce seems like a bit more of a gamble because if Travis Kelce has a big game, that probably means Patrick Mahomes is having a big game, and
right,
and that would be a difficult thing unless it's a.
He almost has to catch like 2 of his 3 touchdown passes and have over 100, well over 100 yards.
I was going to say in the regular season or midway through the regular season, I think Travis Kelce had a 4 touchdown catch performance, and that would have earned it for him for sure if they were giving out an MVP that night, even though it was Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, have some fun with it. I you know, the reason why Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are favorited there is because traditionally quarterbacks have a better chance of winning it. So maybe Patrick Mahomes, if I'm going to bet the Chiefs, maybe I would bet the Patrick Mahomes as well.
Well, and I like that if you're betting the Chiefs also because it could be a situation where the voters think, my gosh, look at the way they won and he gutted this out.
Right.
You know, he could get some points for that, I think, in addition just to his statistics, you know, of what he did. So if you're going to go the Chiefs, I think that's the way to go. I'm going with Hassan Reddick. I would not put up $100.
No.
But if I was, I think that's where I would just go.
Real quick, did you see this on ESPN? They talked about they got a story out about the betting, and this is going to be the most bet Super Bowl ever because there are 32 states now, including Arizona and the District of Columbia, so 33 states, let's say, including Arizona, that you can bet legally now. So they expect 50.4 million adults. Yeah. Jason, that's 20% of American adults to bet on the Super Bowl. Some 16 billion, that's billion with a B, will be bet on the Super Bowl this year. I think that's going to blow away all the records.
When it was here in Arizona 8 years ago, it was not legal at the time.
Right. And remember, there's a sports bet inside of State Farm Stadium now. So this is the first time that's ever happened. Oh. You have to be a ticket holder to the game on Sunday in order to go in and bet at the.
You know, I didn't realize that. I knew there was one where the Diamondbacks play. I didn't realize.
No, there's one inside State Farm, and it's legal to go in and bet there, and you have to have a ticket to go in on Sunday.
Easy question to answer, I think, of Sonny Rafondo here. If you had 2 kids playing in the Super Bowl like the Kelsey brothers, who would you root for? The reason why it's easy is because both play offense, right? So you just root for whoever's on offense.
Yeah, whoever's on offense.
Yeah, root for who's ever on offense, root for your kid to do well, and let the chips be where they may. Obviously, somebody's going to lose and somebody's going to win. I assume that you love your kids the same. Although I would always tease my parents and say, you don't love your kids the same. You love my sister more than I do. And then finally one day they were really mad at me. And they're like, all right, you're right. but assuming you love your kid equally, Pat, I'm sure you love your kids equally.
Yes. Yeah. I
You
think
root for who's ever on offense.
that makes it easy. Root for whoever's on offense. Is it the Diggs brothers that one's on offense and one's on deep? That would be a different story with the Diggs. But anyway, yeah, with the Kelseys, it's easy. Just root for the team on offense, and whichever one wins, you congratulate them. Whichever one loses, you can just console them and say better luck next time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you could think about it another way, like another team has a shot of getting back, whereas another player's older and he may not have a shot at getting back. But when it comes to the Super Bowl, you never know. You never know when a team's going to get back again, even though it feels like the Chiefs are going to get back several times, being how young Mahomes is. You just don't know. So that's the kind of how I would look at it, is whoever has the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was talking about Stephon Diggs and his brother. Like, they're not in the Super Bowl. I'm saying they're not in it, but if they were in the Super Bowl, that was my point.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. You know, I'm sure the TV cameras, Pat, will have their family cutaways multiple times in the. Hey, by the way, real fast, I just want to close on this. I watched the Tom Brady interview with Colin Cowherd yesterday. Did you catch it by chance?
I did not see it. I saw a little.
One of the interesting things to come out of it was, and Colin Cowherd didn't follow up, because I felt like Tom Brady dropped the bomb here that he's not starting until 2024. People thought maybe he was going to be contributing to Fox's broadcast this year, not just this year, this week with the Super Bowl. And then in the fall of 23, because the contract was, well, when he finishes football. So for him to say, hey, 24, I want a chance to become great at it, was interesting to me. I don't know, you know, it's either he wants a year off and don't overthink it any more than that, or maybe there's going to be bigger or better opportunities for him as far as maybe ownership of a team or something like that. I just kind of jumped out at me that he's not starting until 2024. Maybe I'm making too much of it.
Well, I don't know if you are or not. I guess I'm kind of conflicted with my own thought. Is it that he really does want to take a year off? I would, if I were him. It's not like he needs the money, but you know, on the other hand, maybe he's right. I need to get better and be the best at this. You don't want to go on and be terrible, right? Or just go on and be mediocre. If you're as competitive as Tom Brady, you want to be great.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've seen plenty of people who, you know, haven't been great.
Right.
And there are people who are making a case that, hey, he's not opinionated enough. He doesn't have enough color in the personality. He's too polished to really. He doesn't want to criticize people. Just be interesting. It's interesting to me how good he is going to be or not going to be as a broadcaster. I just found that interesting.
Did you see the
I'm sure if he wants to be great at it, he'll find a way.
Yeah. Oh, I think he will be too. I think he'll be good. I mean, whether he's great or not, I'm sure he'll get coaching, and we'll see. I saw the meme though of he's made $335 million in his career as a quarterback in the NFL, and he'll make $375 million over 10 years for Fox.
Yeah, you said he doesn't like the money. I mean, he doesn't need the money.
Well,
he may not need the money. He likes the money.
Yes, I think my point was important. He can take a year off and not worry about it. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, he's got bills to pay. But yes. It's
right.
It's like he said a few months ago. I'm 45. I got a lot of what going on. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this forum, but yeah, that's what he said. All right. Hey, listen, it's been a good huddle. We'll talk Super Bowl next Tuesday and more Arizona basketball. And thanks everybody for Pat. Thanks for coming in early at this special time.
Well, yeah, it was fun.
And thanks everybody for watching and listening live and on all the recorded platforms as well for our digital sports weekly show, The Huddle. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.